The Giants have the number one pick in the 2025 NFL draft. Welcome back to the Everything New York Giants podcast with New York Giants fangirl. I'm your host, Adrianna, and thank you to the Las Vegas Raiders. You get a round of applause for all of us. They beat the Jags, which pushed the Giants into the number one spot and actually bumped the Raiders all the way down to the 5th overall pick. So obviously, things are going to continue to change over the last 2 weeks of the season. Thank God this season is almost over. It cannot come soon enough. And it's so depressing to me. I know that you guys are probably like me, where you wait all spring and summer and cannot wait for football season. And I never want it to end. And this is the first year that I'm like, please, can we fast forward? I cannot wait until it is over with because it is so awful, just awful all around. Not for other teams, just for the Giants. Sucks for us. While we're talking about other teams, the Cowboys also have been eliminated from the playoffs. And on top of that, they went ahead and beat the Bucs. So they just made their draft position worse. So, at least the Giants are doing one thing, right? They continue to lose. And for anyone who has any concerns about this team and beating the Colts or potentially the Eagles week 18, I don't know what you have seen that could possibly lead you to that conclusion. The Colts put up 38 points. And I know you're going to say it's the Titans. Okay, we're the Giants. We are worse than the Titans. Newsflash. So they are 100% going to put up, I would say, 30 points on the Giants. At the minimum, I would think. I think Anthony Richardson's on a roll. He's got his confidence back. He's stacked together a few weeks in a row of some really good football. Yesterday being probably his best game in a really long time. He did a really great job. So, the Giants did a great job of making Michael Penix look like a really good quarterback in his debut, which should be a surprise to no one. So they will continue to do the same for Anthony Richardson and the Colts. I am not worried about that in the slightest. I am worried about John Mara, and I hope that he makes it through the game on Sunday in one piece, because I fear there are going to be multiple planes, not just one, flying around MetLife Stadium. So I will be hearing about it from home, from social media. I am under no circumstances going to that game, especially based on the way the weather has been in the Northeast right now. It's 19 degrees, so I'm good. I'm going to sit that one out. If you are going, enjoy the game, bundle up. The tailgates are always fun, and you will get a glimpse at likely at least one, possibly two planes. I don't know. No one has DM'd me and told me they're doing it. I'm not doing it personally. I just have a feeling based on some of the things that are coming out, specifically from people who have good relationships with people in the building, like certain beat writers, are testing, I think, the idea that they're not going to fire both of them and that they could potentially only fire Dable and keep Joe Schoen, which is, I think, going to lead to multiple planes, because I think the fan base feels it's either one or the other. You either keep both or you fire both, and there is no in between. So I expect to see that on the planes on Sunday. So we'll have that to look forward to, along with probably nothing else. Let's talk about the game, shall we? The Giants, surprise, surprise, lost to the Falcons. Now, Michael Penix, I think, had a good showing for his first game, obviously, in the NFL. He was not a superstar by any means. He went 18 for 27 for 202 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. His defense obviously helped him out significantly after getting 2 pick sixes and forcing a fumble. So, good game from the Falcons. They did what I expected them to do, which was, show the Giants who's boss. So let's go back to the Giants now. Drew Lock. 2 pick sixes. This was his stat line, in case you're wondering. 22 for 39 for 210 yards. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and he was sacked 3 times for 21 yards. I would say my biggest surprise out of all of this, aside from the fact that I don't know how it's possible, but Drew Lock seems to get worse every game that he's played, is that Dable didn't bench him. I thought there was no question in my mind that going into the third quarter, after he had already thrown the first pick six, and I think he fumbled in the first half too, I thought for sure he's getting benched. Because after the Cowboys game, Dable was so upset and repeatedly talked about the quarterback's turnover issues. And then, because of the injury stuff, he ended up having to start Locke after that. But I just thought for sure, knowing that DeVito's healthy, he's going to play him. And he didn't, which was fascinating. And then he threw another pick six and he still didn't bench him. I was just like, this is really fascinating to me. I will never understand how Brian Dable's mind works because it literally makes no sense, which I guess is fine. Like, I don't really care about seeing DeVito. I just thought that he was so pissed off about the turnovers that he was going to be the one to make a move, because it's kind of absurd to watch your veteran quarterback throw 2 pick sixes and fumble the ball. He's thrown 3 pick sixes since Thanksgiving. Like, what is happening? It's just the bad gets worse, which again, I'm happy. We got the first overall pick. It's fine with me. I just, the decision making is really mind boggling, especially if we really went through it. Like, if we dissected this from when Dable first started up until the end of this season, I could probably do a 3-hour-long episode on all of the bizarre decisions that Dable has made that make no sense to normal people like me and like everyone who's listening to this. So just mind-boggling all around. What's funny to me, though, is that, and it's not funny because it's an injury. I hope that Drew Lock is okay. He's getting an MRI on his shoulder, likely today, Dable said. But what's funny to me is that we're having another quarterback carousel situation. So there is a possibility that we are going to see Tommy DeVito as the starter on Sunday against the Colts, which I think everyone would be thrilled with. Although Drew Lock is pretty awful. So, I don't really care. To me, whether it's Lock or DeVito, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. They're both not great quarterbacks. Like, maybe DeVito won't throw multiple pick sixes. Maybe he will. I don't know. So it's going to be interesting from that perspective. So a couple other injuries really quick. Dable said that McFadden is dealing with a burner. Tyrone Tracy Jr. and John Michael Schmitz both aggravated previous ankle injuries against the Falcons. So hope that they're healthy and ready to go for Sunday. We'll get an update on Wednesday, the first injury report. And then I will record this episode probably Saturday night. If I'm not able to, then I will just live stream on Sunday, but we can talk about updates on there. I will be updating all the injuries and everything on my Instagram. It's at New York Giants Fangirl right below if you want to stay tuned for daily updates. If there's no podcast by then because of the holiday week and that sort of thing. So Drew Lock, horrific game. Tyrone Tracy. Okay, so the rushing attack was 13 carries for 46 yards. From what I understand, the Falcons have a really bad run defense. This goes back to my Dable concerns. And I know that Mike Kafka is involved with this. I don't know to what degree. If the Falcons have a bad run defense, why are you not trying to run the ball? 46 rushing yards. I don't understand it. I literally never will. The decision-making is mind-boggling. Tyrone Tracy led the charge, 7 carries for 26 yards. His longest was 5 yards. 5. Singletary, 4 for 12. Also longest was 5 yards. Do you know who had the longest run out of everyone on this team? Darius Slayton with 6 yards. And Drew Lock, 1 rushing yard, which was a shame for my bet because I took the over on 16.5 rushing yards because I thought for sure he's going to do that. Silly me. The rushing attack. Okay. So again, the Giants got blown out, but there are 2 positives that came out of this game. Number 1, Malik Nabers out of 14 targets had 7 receptions for 68 yards. That puts him up to 97 receptions on the season, which is the most for any rookie in Giants history. So thank you, Malik Nabers, for giving us something to be happy about in this god-awful season. I want to also also say that he has had four different quarterbacks, all of which who have not been very good. Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, and Tim Boyle. And this man has 68 yards on the game and 97 receptions on the year, and he also missed 2 games. So could you imagine if he actually had a good quarterback? I mean, it's one of the things we really have to look forward to, right? Is that Nabers, he's also toughing it out, fighting through injuries. He left the game at one point with a shoulder, came right back in. I really appreciate the work ethic and the fight till the end from him. He doesn't have to, and I love that he's competitive enough with himself and with others to say he's going for these records. He is so close to 1,000 yards, and I know he's going to get it on Sunday, and it's great that it'll happen at home for these 17 Giants fans that are there to witness it, but it will be something that we can carry into next year. And I don't think that momentum from one year carries into another because there was zero momentum for the last 2 years that overlapped. So it's not that. I think it's more just the excitement of what Nabers has done in a horrific display of offensive football for the Giants, what he's done, just knowing that when he has a good quarterback, it's going to be the number one thing that I'm sure we look forward into next year, that we have a good quarterback and a really good wide receiver who is going to make watching Giants football fun. I really, really hope. Wan'Dale Robinson was right behind him. 7 receptions for 62 yards. Tracy 4 for 4 for 43 yards. Wan'Dale had 12 targets. Darius 1 reception for 21 yards. Jalen Hyatt had 1 reception for 9 yards out of 2 targets, which the first one was nowhere even remotely close to him, or the second one, whichever it was. Bellinger 1 catch for 5 yards, and then Gray 1 for 2 yards. Now, Bellinger is someone else I thought was going to get more involved in this game, and we'll talk about him in a second. I want to go back to Wan'Dale because I, like you, have had many complaints about this offensive system. Marcy decided she needs to come up and chew boxes underneath me. Mars, hi. Can you take this over there? Go get it. Good girl. One of the things that I was happy about seeing on Sunday was that when the play call was a little slant to Wan'Dale and he took it for the first yard, the first down, they did it again. I was like, oh my God, let's actually run plays that we know work. What a concept. I saw them do it at least 3 times and I was like, this is what we are literally begging for. Just stick with what works. We don't need you to reinvent the wheel. You can reinvent the wheel when we have a sufficient quarterback and, an offense that can move the ball down the field aside from once during an entire football game. So then you can reinvent the wheel and get excited and do what Ben Johnson does and have the Lions offense doing the coolest shit where they're faking fumbles and kneeling and throwing for touchdowns. Like, we can see that when we have a serviceable, functional offense. In the meantime, do easy things that work. And thank you, Wan'Dale Robinson, for making some plays, because that was nice to see for one side of this year. Appreciated that. Okay, back to Bellinger. Was disappointed he didn't get more involved. I know he had some work cut out for him blocking, and they brought in Chris Manhertz for a couple plays to also help block because Evan Neal, for some reason, does not know how to stand on his own 2 feet. I don't know if you guys have seen that video that's circulating Twitter. I watched it a couple times, and the Evan Neal tackle experiment is finito. It is over, toast, toodaloo. Maybe they can try him at guard. He was not even touched. And he's on the floor, like on the ground in the turf. Like 2 seconds, not even, probably 1.5 seconds after the play was called. It's mind-boggling. It's really mind-boggling. And it's disappointing because my expectations for him are like literally in the dirt. Like I've said this before, like pretty much everyone on this team, but I would like him to be serviceable. And he had a couple good weeks. He had me feeling like, oh my God, maybe he's going to be okay as a backup. And if God forbid one of our tackles go down, I would like a veteran swing tackle to go in there first. But if God forbid both of them go down and Evan Neal has to step in, maybe I feel like the whole world is not going to end. And that changed. After that game, it's over. over. Okay, let's talk about the defense. Darius Muasau had a pretty good game. He played the bulk of the snaps, if not all of them, with Bobby Okereke out on IR. 11 total tackles. He had a tackle for loss and a quarterback hit. So for a 6th round linebacker, he played better than I expected him to. Pinnock was right behind him with 8 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. The team had 7 tackles for loss, not a single sack, but Pinnock, Summers, Drew Phillips, Boogie Basham, who I was like, whoa, haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back. And Brian Burns and Elijah Garcia all had tackles for loss. Kayvon had a quarterback hit, which was nice. Banks had 2 pass deflections. Dean Bellin had another pass deflection, and Cordell Flott had 1. Cordell Flott coming up with that interception was great. He's a guy that has really come on in the last few weeks. And I know he was injured during a game here or there, but the second half of the season for him, and maybe it's because he's getting more playing time with Banks out, he seems to have started to develop quite well. I don't feel like he's going to be a number 1 corner, but I feel like when he's out there, he's not a liability, which honestly, for a lot of players on this team, I think says a lot. So I feel better about him. I hope he ends the season strong and continues to play like that, because we got to feel like we have some depth at corner. And right now there's just none. And Banks, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on with him. He's just, I feel like he has like a couple good tackles and you're like, okay, Banks, or like, has a pass deflection. You're like, okay, good coverage. Like maybe he's figuring it out. And then he just doesn't tackle on some plays and looks clueless on others. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Why is this so challenging for everyone to figure out? And again, it's the season is almost over. You are supposed to be getting better and improving with every week that goes by. And it's really just mind-boggling to me that the bulk of this team got worse. Significantly worse. Drew Lock with the pick sixes? Like, what are we doing? It's really something. And it just goes back to my feelings like cleaning house. And I mean at like, almost every position. And I don't say that lightly, and I like a lot of the coaches and I don't want them to go anywhere. But I think the reality is when you've had position coaches who have made it through different head coaches over the years, but these same issues still persist. And the biggest one being that when Giants players from all different years go to other teams and drastically improve quite quickly, there's 2 reasons for that: the scheme and the coaching. So when we've had different schemes over the last couple years, and no one seems to thrive in any of them, Dexter Lawrence is the only one who looks good in all the different schemes that we have seen over the years, between Graham, Betcher, Shane Bowen, and Wink. I mean, and then you have everyone else, like the tackling issues are still a problem. The wide receivers are still dropping balls. The separation is not really a problem. Like, it's not great, but I saw a stat saying that Malik is one of the top 4 receivers for getting separation in the league. So like, can you just get the ball that's remotely catchable to him? Like the amount of balls that I saw that were thrown 10 feet over his head. And I know it comes with a new quarterback. I know it's coming, but it's just, there's just so many things that I see that are so frustrating. And again, I just feel like when you have position coaches who've made it through multiple different coaches and the issues are still the same, there is something that's not right there, and it stems from all of the coaching. I think one of the few people who I would like to keep are Carmen Brasillo. I think he's done a nice job with the offensive line. The defensive line coach has, which I think is Andre Patterson, has done a pretty good job, I would say. But I think Jerome Henderson is the DB's coach, and I don't know if Banks is the problem or the coaching is the problem or what. It seems like he can't really get through to Banks, and our corners are a whole slew of problems. I mean, yes, Cordell Flott is looking a little bit better as the weeks go on, and so is Adoree Jackson. But honestly, and I'm not at practice every day, but the things that I see during the games and the things that I hear from very close sources, make me to believe that Adoree Jackson, it's strictly an effort thing. And I'm glad that he decided to step it up at week 15. Good for you, bro. Where the fuck were you all the other weeks? Guess it doesn't matter. Not going to be here next year, but it's just, I don't know. It's that stuff that's a problem to me. And I just feel like the only solution is truly starting all over again with a handful of position coaches who are I'm okay with staying, as if I have a choice in the matter. It's a very big problem. And we've talked about it for years. Zeitler leaves, goes to another team, is so much better. Even Eric Flowers, they moved him to guard. He's serviceable. Like, I'm not talking about all of these players being all pros or pro bowlers. I don't need that. I need them to be good football players, not terrible, which it's when they have decent talent, like you're not, I know they have a history, especially over the last couple of years, of plucking players literally off the street, but they started out the season with that not being the case. And the team was so bad. And they've had issues of having good talent. It's not always just a talent thing. It's the coaching cannot get the best out of them. And that is a coaching problem. So anyway, I think everyone knows how I feel at this point. So we are a couple weeks away of there being some changes. I don't think anything is going to happen until the season is over. I think John Mara and Steve Tisch are going to have a very long, difficult conversation, and we'll see what ends up coming of it. But like I said, it has to be you keep both or you get rid of both. And if you decide that you're keeping both, say it with your full chest and give your reasons why you're keeping them. And this is the move that you're making. And you are not going to bow down to us pain in the ass fans, which is fine. Be prepared that the PSLs are going to be not paid next year, that there are going to be a lot less people in the building. And that's okay. If that's a risk that John Mara and Steve Tisch are willing to take, then so be it. If by week 3 they have a winning record, then all of that is going to change, and then it will be great. But if you're going to keep them because you think it's the right move, because you've consulted with people who agree that it's the right move, and who you really firmly believe they need more time to fix this. I don't agree with that, but I don't make the decisions. If that's the decision that John Mara makes, we will all be forced to accept it. We don't have to like it. I'm sure a lot of us will not. But we have to accept that it is what it is. And up to you whether or not you want to watch Giants football next year, go to games, participate, completely up to you. I will be on board with it. I will get over it. And I will hope that they can redeem themselves, because there's nothing I want more than to win football games and stop being the embarrassment of the NFL. And if Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll are the ones who can seemingly figure it out in year 4 because they got a good quarterback and they had another good draft class, then by all means, I hope that's the answer, because it means less turnover. It means less chaos. It means more continuity. Maybe it means more happiness from the players. I don't know. But if that's what it is, then so be it. Either way, we need to have a really good draft and free agency, though. So again, we'll know about that sooner rather than later. So I think that's all I got for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening, tuning in. Everyone who's still listening, I appreciate you so much. Please like, subscribe, and share the podcast with the people that you love. Maybe people that you don't love, maybe they'll get on board too. And I hope you guys have a really, really wonderful holiday with your family, your friends, whoever you're spending it with. If you're choosing to spend it alone because you like peace and quiet, then I hope you have the best holiday ever. Everyone stay safe, be careful. I'll be back later this weekend and we'll talk Giants versus Colts and more draft stuff, probably. Happy holidays. Go Giants.